Hi everybody, Niklas Seidloff here. At DNAG, the German Nodes user group, I gave some updates related to application development. In this video here, I'm gonna repeat the highlights. Just before I get started, here's our typical disclaimer. You should not use any of the information about potential future products to make purchasing decisions, since none of these features are committed and our plans could change. Here's the agenda. I talked and will talk in this video about the social enabler for XPages, about open social gadgets, the Nodes browser plugin and community. And I had the pleasure to announce the new IBM Social Business Toolkit. Just before I talk about these different technologies, let me give you some context. It's always difficult or even impossible to map high-level terms like social to concrete technologies. However, I think that certain technologies deserve special attention here because they play a key role when it comes to building your own custom social applications. Now, what is a custom social application? I think social applications are applications as you have probably built them for years already, collaborative applications with functionality like user profiles, documents, instant messaging, etc. Now, what has changed over the last years, though, is the establishment of new social software like IBM Connections. In this social software contains infrastructure like user profiles, networks, status updates, files that you can now leverage in your own custom applications, and you don't have to rebuild that infrastructure. Instead, you can really focus on your own application logic. So building custom social applications often means that you need to be able to integrate other systems. And what you can see here on the graphics on the slides is, first of all, the growth of web APIs in general, and then also the growth of REST APIs. So if you want to build your own custom social applications, you really need to be able to use REST, to consume REST APIs, to integrate existing social software. In addition to REST, we also use other open standards to achieve the maximal interoperability between heterogeneous systems. Another standard that we heavily depend on here is called OAuth, which is a standard for delegated authorization. And that allows users to access their data in other applications on their behalf, so that you can integrate that data in your own custom business applications. Now, as you know, standards are important for IBM in general. IBM consumes a lot of standards, and it also drives the definition of new standards. A good example here is OpenSocial. IBM is in the board of directors, and there are also IBM developers who are the committers for the Apache Shindig project, which is a reference implementation of the OpenSocial standard. And specifically, IBM has driven here the definition of the embedded experience as part of OpenSocial. Next, I want to describe how you can consume REST APIs in your own custom applications, and I'm going to start with how you can do that as an XPages developer. Now, as you know, XPages is IBM's rapid application development platform to build web applications that can be projected to different devices. And we want to allow XPages developers to consume these REST APIs as easily as possible. So in order to do that, we provide and contributed a new infrastructure on OpenNTF a couple of months ago. And this infrastructure is called the Social Enabler for XPages Developers. With this new infrastructure, you can very easily now connect and integrate other systems like IBM Connections, IBM Smart Cloud, Dropbox, Twitter, Facebook, etc. So basically everything that comes with a REST API. And we also provide a sample database that shows you how to do these things. And what you can see here on the screen, on the slide, are some screenshots from how we do this for Dropbox. The social enabler for XPages developers has a number of benefits. I think the biggest benefit is here that it isolates the complexity related to authentication mechanisms. In other words, you can use OAuth very easily, and you don't have to do any of this yourself, but it happens magically under the cover for you, so your code doesn't have to contain any authentication code. And the other nice thing is that all credentials are managed in one central place in another Nodes database called the Web Security Store. Another benefit of the social enabler is that it allows you to very easily switch between different environments. For example, a test environment and a production environment. And again, you don't have to do any of this in your source code, but you use property files. And last but not least, the social enabler also provides a set of APIs or different types of APIs, low-level APIs that you can use to integrate any type of REST services, and also higher level objects, business objects and services with advanced capabilities that you can use for very common scenarios. While the functionality that I just described has been available for XPages developers for some time, at DNUG I announced the new IBM Social Business Toolkit, which provides very similar functionality now for other types of web developers and for Java developers. And that new infrastructure again contains some mechanisms to invoke REST services generically, but there are also new APIs that makes it really simple to access IBM Connections and IBM Smart Cloud for Social Business, formerly known as Lotus Live. Now, these new APIs aren't a replacement for the existing product APIs, but they are basically another level of APIs on top of the existing APIs. They provide a consistent extensibility model, and they work for different delivery models like cloud and on-premises. And obviously, they also can be used by different client types. So here's an example for how web developers can now consume this new toolkit. The toolkit comes with an SDK that can be run on different types of Java application servers. And the SDK contains a JavaScript API which can be included in your own HTML code via just a single line of code. Now, the example on the slide shows how you can access the thumbnail URL of a specific user. So in order to do that, there's a new object called, or service called profile service that provides a method getProfile. And once you receive the output, you can call the method profile.getThumbnailURL. It's as easy as that. And as you can see, or as you can't see, there is no authentication code in here. That's all handled automatically by the toolkit. In addition to web developers, the toolkit can also be used by Java developers. Here's another easy example showing a JSP that reads entries from the activity stream. First, you can import these services and value objects, and then you can use objects like the activity stream service that provides methods like getActivityStream, and that method returns a list of actual entries with properties like a title and methods like a getEventTitle. The new IBM Social Business Toolkit contains actually a couple of different components. So far I've talked about the SDK. The SDK will be available as open source on GitHub and OpenNTF.org. In addition to that, there will be a new development community hosted on DeveloperWorks. There is or will be a wiki and also a forum. For questions and answers, we've planned to use Stack Overflow. There's also a new version of the IBM Collaboration Quick Start image that I will talk about in a couple of minutes. But before I do that, I want to introduce the new Playground, which is a web application that lets developers experiment the social functionality using a web-based application. Here's a quick demo of the new Playground. The Playground allows web developers to develop their own snippets that then can easily be executed against different environments. I'm using here a version of the Playground on a development server, but we also want to host the Playground live on IBM Greenhouse. The left navigator here, the left column, contains a navigator with a list of available snippets to access Connections and Smart Cloud. From here I can pick the snippet that I want and I can open it, and I'm using the same one here, getThumbnailURL, that I talked about on one of the slides. So once I've clicked on it, the code of that snippet is displayed here under the HTML tab, JavaScript and CSS tabs. And in order to show you that this is actually live code, I'm replacing here this property with an actual email address from another person, Anna Bauer, and then when I run it, I should see, and I see her profile picture coming up right here. Now, once I'm happy with my code snippet, I can then say show generated HTML, which shows the HTML for that complete page that I then can copy and paste into my own web application. And here, things like the actual JavaScript API is included. Now, in addition to these predefined snippets, as a user, as a greenhouse user, I can also define my own snippets. I can create snippets either from scratch, or I can save existing snippets and give them a new name and then change them. So I can say communities, files, profiles, and Nick demo, and then I save it, and that snippet shows up right here, and now I can go ahead and change it and do whatever I wanted to do. All of these snippets are stored in the playground, which is an application implemented using XPages, which you can see here, and the application itself is also available as open source on OpenNTF. As I mentioned earlier, a great benefit of the IBM Social Business Toolkit is that you can switch easily between different environments. In my example here, I didn't have to define my environment in the source code, but externally, and I can now simply switch between these different environments here by selecting another environment. The example that I just ran, I ran against IBM Connections as it is deployed on my own SBT Quick Start image, but I could also use one of these other environments, or I can even define my own custom environment pointing to my own connection server. The other great benefit of the toolkit is the way authentication is handled. In my example here, I didn't have to authenticate because I'm currently logged in as Frank Adams, and Frank Adams had already granted my XPages application previously access to so that my XPages application can read data from IBM Connections on behalf of Frank Adams. That is different, however, if I'm not logged in. So let me close the browser and restart the application. And now when I try to read something from, let's say, Smart Cloud, let's say Get About Me, then I will see here an authentication prompt. Right here, I can enter my credentials and I can log in. And once I've done that, I see first of all here the output of that snippet, and then I can also switch between other snippets because my credentials are now stored in memory for the duration of the session, and they are even stored longer in a web security store for between different browser sessions if I am actually logged on. So that was a quick demonstration of the new playground. There's one more component as part of this IBM Social Business Toolkit that I want to mention here, which is a new version of the IBM Collaboration Quick Start for Social Business image. This image comes or will come with the latest versions of IBM Connections, Domino and SameTime installed and pre-configured. There are also test user accounts available, and the SDK is installed as well. The image will be available in two different versions. It will be available on the IBM Smart Cloud, and you can also download it and play locally using VMware. Next, I want to switch gears and talk about another topic, which is extensibility of IBM Connections. Everything I've described so far was related to how you can access IBM Connections functionality from your own custom applications. This is basically the counterpart. It's about how you can add your own applications as gadgets or widgets to IBM Connections. And there are basically two ways to do that. You can use iWidgets to add widgets on home pages, communities, and profiles, as you could already do this in Connections 3. And in Connections 4, there is a new ability available so that you can also leverage the activity stream and the embedded experience. So here's a quick sample scenario. Activity streams contain notifications from various applications. For example, the applications that come out of the box with IBM Connections put in the activity streams entries when new files have been shared, new communities have been created, and status updates of your network occur. In this example here, there is a notification from a custom application, a trouble ticket application. The trouble ticket here has been assigned to the current user. Now the nice thing about the activity stream is that users can now click on these entries to bring up directly here in line and in context the so-called embedded experience. Now this allows users to see directly the most important information about this particular trouble ticket, and they can also invoke the most typical actions directly from here without having to leave the context. Now this saves users a lot of time because they don't longer have to switch back and forth between different applications. They don't have to re-authenticate, and they don't have to find again the particular application or trouble ticket in the other application. Now technically, in order to implement such a scenario, you can use the social SDK that I just introduced to put an entry in the activity stream. Now in order to then build the embedded experience, you can use open social gadgets, which can be implemented using various web application technologies. And in order to do the authentication, typically OAuth is used, but Connections 4 also comes with the notion of trusted gadgets that support single sign-on to other IBM Collaboration Solution servers. In addition to extensions to the activity stream and embedded experience, you can also extend other areas of IBM Connections, for example communities. Now community moderators can add their own widgets to communities, but only after administrators of IBM Connections have initially deployed these widgets. Now in order to make it even easier for moderators to do that and without having to wait for administrators to deploy these iWidgets, there are two new so-called generic iWidgets available on OpenNTF. These widgets have only to be deployed once, and then moderators can create as many instances as they want and define whatever content they want to show up in these widgets. So what you see here at the top is the generic XPages widget, iWidget, and the one at the bottom is a generic HTML iWidget. And both widgets here in this example show some links to external news. Now as a community moderator, you can add these widgets by using the customization UI, and then you can simply fill out the HTML and JavaScript code here for the HTML widget, or the references pointing to the XPages for the generic XPages widget. The next topic is the IBM Lotus Notes browser plugin. With the Notes browser plugin, you will be able to run existing Notes applications unmodified in web browsers. That's often requested by customers who have a bigger amount of existing Notes applications that they want to web enable, and or customers who have little time and resources to modernize these applications using XPages. Now technically the way it works is that the Notes runtime, the core Notes runtime, is made available here in the browser. And when I say the core Notes component, I refer to the what we used to call basic client, the Notes C code, as opposed to the standard Notes client, which also comes with the Eclipse shell for sidebar plugins running XPages and composite apps. So those functionality or these features won't be available in the browser plugin. Now, since browsers have actually different extensibility models, there won't be only the one browser plugin, but there will actually be multiple versions, one per browser and even per operating system. Specifically, we target Firefox 8 and higher and Internet Explorer 8 and higher for Windows 7 and Citrix. We also plan to provide two different install packages. The maximal version, which is 125 megabyte big, and a smaller version that comes without the Java virtual machine, and you can use the smaller version if you don't have Java code, like for example Java agents. Here is a sample scenario showing how to run an existing Notes application, a trouble ticket application, in a web browser using the Notes browser plugin. What you can see here on the screenshot, on the bigger screenshot, is an unmodified Notes client application running in the web browser, in this case in Firefox. Now the great thing about this is that you can accomplish this with minimal effort. and you can reuse the exact same storage model, business logic, as well as deployment model. The look and feel is also identical to the look and feel in the Notes client, which in some cases is sufficient and requested since people don't have to retrain their users. In other cases, you might want to consider to modernize the user interface using XPages to provide a more modern web user interface and web application. Now, in order to do that, you can either do this individually, or you can evaluate products and tools and services provided by some IBM partners that try to automate as much of this modernization process as possible. My last application development updates in this presentation are related to community. As you know, OpenNTF is the open source site for IBM collaboration solutions technologies. OpenNTF has been very successful over the last months and years and has become very popular and active. For example, last year we had 316 new open source releases and close to 200,000 downloads. One of the things OpenNTF is doing is to host development contests. In the first 3 contests, we have received more than 100 contributions. Right now, there is yet another development contest going on until the beginning of December, where people can win 5 times $1,000. We are asking developers to contribute XPages projects or XPages projects that integrate with IBM Connections. And in addition to these big contests, there's also an ongoing XSnippet contest where we award quarterly people who have provided high-value code snippets. At the beginning of this year, we also, OpenNTF and the XPages community, decided to reach out to other existing communities. For example, we asked the XPages developers to use Stack Overflow for questions and answers. And that has also been very successful. So far, more than 700 questions have been created on Stack Overflow, specifically about XPages, and more than 90% of them have been answered within days. And very recently, we added support for GitHub on OpenNTF. So you can now release your code on OpenNTF and then use GitHub as source control repository. In addition to OpenNTF and open source, the XPages community also provides many other valuable resources. For example, on xpages.info, we collect daily news, which can be blog entries, questions that have been answered on Stack Overflow, new videos, or other types of resources. And only this year, we've already collected more than 900 of these news entries. And as you can see, that community is really active. And I also would like to highlight the free videos, free XPages education videos. There is a YouTube channel from OpenNTF. There is another very popular XPages series called Notes and 9 with close to 100 episodes. And there is yet another series called X Series, given from 2 IBM partners, GBS and TLCC. And I would also like to mention the 3rd XPages book called the XPages Extension Library. And the reason why I put this here on the book on the community slide is because it has been a community effort to write it. Most of the authors are people from the community, and they sat together and decided to write a book. Another community effort is the new website collaborationtoday.info. Collaborationtoday.info is a news aggregator for IBM collaboration solutions professionals. It contains links to high-quality content that is curated and added by moderators from the community. The homepage contains some featured news entries, but you can also filter news entries here by using the categories so that different types of users can see the information they are looking for. Business people, application developers, administrators, etc. For example, I can filter here down to XPages. Now, the application itself has been implemented using XPages and is available as open source on OpenNTF. So you can go to OpenNTF, download it to check out how we've implemented things like the nice responsive design. So that's everything I wanted to cover today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye bye.